Kia ora, everyone, and welcome. We might just give it another minute or so just to wait for everyone else to dial in.
Maybe we could start and then people can join us as they come in and catch up on the kōrero. Lovely to see everyone. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you for joining us for the webinar and Q&A session for the Development Fund for Arts Organisations and Groups. So you see we're using the Teams Q&A functionality today. So please feel free throughout our presentation to drop your questions into the chat and we'll do our best to answer your pārtai either in written response or we will speak to it during the session. This webinar will run for up to 45 minutes. But let's start off with karakia. Me karakia tātou. Tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri o ora ki te katoa. Haumie huie tai ki e. And while I've got the rākau, let me introduce you to our team and to myself. My name's Adrienne Roberts. My pronouns are she, her. I'm wearing a grey sweatshirt. I'm trialing out a red and blue neck scarf, and I've got black hair. I'm dialing in from Pōneke from Wellington. My other lovely hoa mahi here today are Helen Coe, who is our Senior Advisor in Development based in Tāmaki. She'll be sharing the presentation with me. And we've also got Evatia Rose Araiti, our Senior Advisor Development Pacific, based in Pōneke as well. And Te Otinga Hohaia, our Senior Advisor Development Ngātahi Māori, based in Tāmaki too. Also in the background, we've got some of our other CNZ hoa mahi joining us. So hello, happy Friday to you too. All right, what we're going to cover today is a brief overview of the Development Fund before we open up the floor for pārtai. So first we're going to look at preparing your application, the focus areas that we've decided and the types of development activities that you may wish to undertake, the kinds of things that you need to include in your application and how your application will be assessed, who will be assessing it, and then following that, we'll open up the floor for questions. The Development Fund for Arts Organisations and Groups has been going on for a couple of years now since we've made our changes within arts development, though this is the first year that we've opened it up for our tōtara and kahikatea investment organisations. The purpose of the fund is for projects to help build the capability of arts organisations and groups in specified focus areas to help build their longer term sustainability. It's for a specific project and it's for a period of time between the end of June this year till around the end of September next year. The budget that you can apply for is up to $10,000 for your project, and it can be for up to 2 focus areas. These focus areas are on the screen. I'll talk through them. There's accessibility for deaf and disabled communities. There's audience engagement, cultural competency, Te Aki Tai-ao, environmental guardianship and responsiveness, financial resilience, governance development, responsiveness to te tiriti o Waitangi, and strategy development. Some examples of eligible activities could include, let's say you're looking at the accessibility option, you might want to undertake some training for your staff to do some courses to help better support deaf and disabled peoples. You may want to develop a strategy as well in terms of how in the long term your organisation may work with that community better. We have in there audience engagement, a really popular focus area we've had, where you might want to develop a strategy to augment your audience engagement. You may wish to have an external consultant to look through what you're currently doing and perhaps proffer some ideas for you to work through. Financial resilience is also a really popular focus area that we've had in the past. So an example we've got there is developing a revenue generation strategy. Perhaps, again, you might want to work with an external consultant, or you might want to bring together your staff to undertake a piece of work that's over and above your BAU to maybe refresh your revenue generation strategy or to create something new altogether. Other activities might be under that cultural competency piece, going for a course or doing a suite of work to develop your cultural competency in various areas. Yeah, just feel free to get in touch with us if you have a specific idea and you're not sure whether it's eligible or not. We've written there, website development or upgrades can only be funded if it's linked to one of the focus areas. So what won't be eligible is if you have a generalist application to update your website. However, if you really clearly articulate to us that you want to work on your fundraising, for instance, or your financial resilience, and you need to enhance an element of your website, perhaps it's a plugin for you to be able to have a sponsorship banner or to do something else to increase your revenue generation, and that has to be on your website, that could be something that's eligible. And lastly, the likes of CapEx and cost to modify, update your physical spaces are ineligible through the Development Fund. I'll pass it on to Helen now.
Kia ora, Adrienne, thank you. So some of you might be familiar with our definition of arts organisations and groups, particularly if you're thinking about coming into arts organisations and groups funding. However, if any of you on the call today aren't sure, what we mean by arts organisations and groups are entities that deliver ongoing or regular artistic activity. They are organisations and groups that have a long-term purpose or vision for the arts. They continue operating even if the people change that work there, and most importantly, they have arts outcomes as their core activity. So some examples could include theatres, art galleries, orchestras, community arts groups, festivals, and artist-run spaces. As I've mentioned, they do have more kind of longer term, possibly year-round programming, even if staff members change. And arts organisations that we support and that are able to apply to this fund may have established legal structures and professional staff, even if there's only one or two staff members, or possibly even one. And certainly arts groups typically are smaller. Sometimes they're artist-led or focused on specific community or artistic projects. There is more information if you want to dive into that definition on the fund page for the Development Fund for Arts Organisations and Groups. So feel free to go on there and check that out. So how to apply to this fund? Well, we have deliberately made it, we hope, easy for you to apply in terms of the questions we ask you. There are 3 questions in total, and essentially we want to know what development activity or activities you want to do. So information around what that might entail, who's involved, possibly an indication of the cost, even at a high level, and you're sort of planning around that. What is your plan to deliver these activities, as I've just mentioned? So thinking more about kind of who's going to be involved and their responsibilities and roles, your capacity to undertake these activities alongside any BAU is something that we would advise, and certainly kind of digging into more of the sort of project planning around it. So is the opportunity available to you? Is it kind of confirmed, particularly if you're maybe wanting to work with an external contractor or consultant? So, you know, perhaps even ascertaining their interest and availability in advance is a good idea. So when it comes to you explaining what you want to do, we're sure that it has the potential to go ahead. And then finally, what are the benefits to your arts organisation or group, or your communities? The other point, which is quite important to let you know, is you don't need to provide a budget with your application. We only ask you to provide a budget if your application is successful. However, in terms of that planning piece, it is quite a good idea to work on a draft budget, as you'll need to submit one to us anyway. And obviously, to help you with your planning, it's good to know what you can actually afford to do within the maximum available funding, or whatever funding amount you choose to apply for. The other piece to let you know is you can submit a joint application to the fund with another organisation or group, and that's a fairly straightforward process. If you want to team up with another organisation, you would need to just check out the details on our fund page, and one of you would need to be the lead applicant in that case. In terms of budget, sorry, just one other thing. Some people want to know information on kind of creating a budget. I guess this is more if you're successful, but just to let you know, there is actually a section on the fund page which is on how to create a budget, including a budget template. So if that's useful for your planning process, or indeed if you're successful, please do utilise the resource. So your application will be assessed by external peer assessors. It's assessed by different people depending on which funding pool you apply to. So for instance, if you're applying to the Ngātahi Māori funding pool, Ngātahi Māori peer assessors will assess your application, and Creative New Zealand Ngātahi Māori staff will make the funding decisions. Peer assessors will consider whether your proposed activities align well with the focus areas, and that means that essentially your activities deliver to one or a maximum of two focus areas, that they demonstrate a clear need to build these skills. So in your answers, your application answers, you've given an outline of why you need to build these skills, that the activities are well planned and thought through, and finally that developing these skills will provide clear benefits and help you create long-term success. It's worth, I think, putting yourself in the assessor's shoes and checking your application answers against the assessment criteria, just to ensure that your answers do align with each of these criteria points. In terms of the funding pools, if you're unsure which funding pool to apply to, that's General Arts for the abbreviations we have on the screen, Ngātahi Māori or Pacific Arts, you can read more about choosing a funding pool on the fund page again. So there's more information there if you want to take a closer look. So that's how we assess, and yeah, we're keen to hear any questions that you might have about the fund, anything we can help you with today. They might be specific to what you're thinking of doing, or they might be more general about what we're looking for, or the kind of purpose of the fund, or any of the process around applying. No question is too small or even too large. We're open to any and all, and yeah, feel free to type something in the Q&A, and if you don't have anything at this stage, we're happy to perhaps kick off with some of our ideas around what your frequently asked questions might be. So yeah, don't be shy about coming forward, but equally if we've covered everything off, that's also excellent. One of the frequently asked questions that we have seen come up in this particular fund, which we've now offered twice, I think I'm correct in saying that, 2024 and 25, is occasionally we have arts organisations wanting to know if they can actually deliver training on behalf of their communities. So that's possibly something that might be a bit confusing. This fund isn't for an amount of money to support you to deliver training to your communities. It's certainly for you yourselves as an arts organisational group to receive the training. Yeah, so that's a kind of clear distinction, I think, that's important to emphasise. And one that we have come across over time. So it's building your organisation's capability and not to develop, host or deliver training or services for your community's artists or practitioners. At this point, as there's no other questions, I might pass to other kaimahi to see if anyone else wants to pick up one of our frequently asked questions to dive into some of the things we think people might want to know.
Kia ora, Ehua. So I've just popped a question in the chat there, which is one of our frequently asked. So can I pay one of my staff or recruit a new staff member to undertake the development activity, such as increase our fundraising capacity? So we appreciate that often the number of hands being able to do the work is a challenge for people. So this is a question that we get quite frequently coming through. So in terms of that, unfortunately, you know, you can't. So no, if it's the staff's focus is BAU, for example, implementing an existing fundraising strategy, then that wouldn't be eligible. However, you could allocate some of the hours towards developing a refresh strategy with mentoring from a subject matter. So this could help develop some of your staff skills and also build the capability for the long-term success of your organisation. So this is, I think this is the kind of query that can be helpful to have, send it through to us for advice around, because we can give you a bit of guidance around the split of what that looks like. And if we have a better understanding of what your staff are doing versus what the project is that they'll focus on in terms of what you ask for funding for with this particular fund, we can give you a guidance on what would sit within eligibility and sit outside of eligibility. But as a basic rule of thumb, if it's part of the BAU, it would not be eligible, but it's over and above and connected to a project, which is, as part of this funding application that you are providing, then yes, it could be eligible.
One other thing I was thinking of is this is for not our investment clients, but our repeat organisations who've applied before, that question of whether they can apply again if they were successful in our previous 2 rounds. And we do say, yes, you can apply if you finish that project and you have submitted your report to us. We know we've got a few people who have been really successful with the first round and they're wanting to build and augment, and maybe they want to apply again. The overarching advice maybe I would give to anyone really with any project is, once that term of funding is finished, once you spent the 10K, what is the enduring impact of that beyond what we've supported? And that'll be something the external assessors will be looking at. Is this a project that needs to be funded again and again and again, or has there been some long-term sustainability built within that, whether that be training for staff so that they can continue to do that mahi once that external consultant is gone, for instance?
I've got one of our frequently asked questions. What support material would strengthen our application? Really, somebody asked in the chat, is there a word limit for the application? And I responded by saying, answer the question. Try not to go wee wee wah wah going off on a tangent. Answer the question. Whatever we've asked you, answer the question, which brings back to what support material would strengthen the application. Only provide that support material that will strengthen that will strengthen what you've already put into the application. Now, as my formahi said at the beginning of the presentation, we've made it extremely easy for you to apply, and we've taken out some of those roadblocks that some of us felt when we're filling out applications, the budgets, the work plans, but stick to whatever you need to, other documentation that you want to put in there, that it's going to support what you've already said about what the kaupapa is. Ka pai? Very good.
Kia ora team. We've also had a question come through on the Q&A from lovely Anipiki. Ngā mihi for your pātai e hoa. So is developing capability around policy review / development eligible under the culture outcome? Anyone want to jump into that?
Yeah, Anipiki, the culture outcome, is that the cultural competency? I know, sorry, I'm asking you a question. I know you can't respond, but is that maybe under the cultural competency focus area you're thinking of? Policy review and the likes of that kind of mahi could sit under strategy development, and that is one of the focus areas. Depending if it's more nuanced in terms of a specific cultural demography or something like that you're looking at, then yes, I would say that would be eligible. If you've got something more specific in mind that you want to kind of chew through with one of us, then please feel free to flick us an email, or you can go on the CNZ website and book in a time with one of the development advisors, and we can talk through what your specific area is. Sorry, I hope that kind of answered your question. Too long, didn't read. Yes, if it's under that strategy development focus area. Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Are there any more questions? I realise that it's like Friday lunchtime as well, and we don't want to keep you for too long.
There's one here that says, can I pay myself to undertake the development activity? I'm going to go answer this way. Yes, but it's only 10K. So just decide how you're going to use funds. You've come here because you'd like to see what part of your business or your capability that you want to strengthen. So just think about when you're allocating out the $10,000, be very strategic on how you want to use it, and use it wisely. Kia ora. Back to the studio.
I might just throw in a final one, which is sometimes something that comes up. Is there a preference for assessors to consider whether or not you choose one focus area or two, or kind of, do you possibly only focus on one? Would that achieve a higher score from the assessors? And essentially the answer is no, it wouldn't. However, certainly our advice would be that you as the applicant really have a good think about what you can achieve with the budget on offer and the time frame and your capacity, considering other business as usual. Certainly while the budget is not required unless your application is successful, we encourage you to start thinking about kind of how that budget is spent. And obviously, if you're wanting to spread it too thin, it might not achieve the outcomes you're looking for around that longer term success. So so think about how the money could be spent to greater effect, and also within your capacity.
Just to tauturu what lovely Helen has shared there, in terms of themes that we've seen in recipients from this fund, we have found in the past that it is not uncommon for applicants to often apply to do more than what has been possible when they've actually gone to do it. And that can be for a number of reasons. It's a bit like building a house. You think it'll take this long and cost this much, and often the reality of that is more time and more money. So thinking really hard, as Helen has shared there, about what the BAU is that you have to deliver. And I'd even recommend maybe allowing a bit of buffer time if things do change, or if things go wrong. life happens, then that's completely okay. But just allowing for some of those unknowns that can pop up can be really helpful when it comes to applying to this particular fund in terms of what we've seen previously. I'd just also like to really touch on very quickly, what support material can strengthen the application. So we've been very clear there that you don't need to do a budget in terms of when you submit an application to this particular fund. But what we do sometimes suggest to people as they're working through putting together a plan for this fund is actually perhaps doing a rough budget for yourself in terms of understanding how you would allocate that $10,000 to ensure that it can cover what you're wanting to do. That doesn't need to be submitted to us, but it can at least help you understand feasibly how far that money can stretch in terms of what you're proposing to do. And secondly, the other thing that I've noticed from stronger applications to this fund is that there's a very, very clear outline about what the person or what the organisation or group is wanting to do, how they're going to do it, and they've got a very clear plan of how they plan to deliver that. Now, we completely appreciate, as I've said, that sometimes what's proposed in an application, when the rubber hits the road, it can be completely different, and there might be things that pop up, we can adjust and work with recipients on the other side if they are successful in this fund in adjusting those timelines. But from a submission perspective, when submitting the application, having really clear planning around these things, if you've got ideas of stakeholders or consultants or people you want to work with, having evidence that supports that they're willing and able to do the work with you, quotes if it's gone that far in terms of being able to commit to that work if you are successful in receiving the funding. All of those kinds of additional documents can help strengthen the application. But also, to be very clear, they're not expected. So if you do not have them, that does not render your application ineligible or anything. It can still proceed. But those are some of the things, particularly the detail around the plan and how it's going to be delivered, can provide a really strong application. And I just want to check with my beautiful Huamahi, are there any other sort of tips or elements that you've observed of strong applications when we've run past rounds?
A real minor point on the eligible timeframe for activity. So I think to your point, Ibatia, sometimes making sure that there's enough space and time alongside BAU to actually engage in the activity is really important, that sort of planning piece. So we actually do have quite a long time frame for the project to be delivered. It works out to be around 18 months in total. So activity is between the 25th of June 2026 to the 25th of September 2027. And so with that in mind, just a piece firstly to check that whatever you want to do fits within that time frame and isn't either beforehand or perhaps in later on in 2027. And just a minor point that occasionally what does happen is some of the activity might mean that you have to, particularly in regards to travel, you might want to take up, for instance, cheaper travel that might be associated with the development activity. And so we've had requests, can I essentially be reimbursed for that travel if I'm successful? And so I guess the onus is on you to perhaps take the risk on, because obviously it's not guaranteed that you'd be funded, but also appreciating that securing cheaper travel rates is of an advantage to everyone, and so therefore in that case, as long as the travel itself takes place during the eligible period, then and you also realise that there's a certain risk attached to you outlying for travel in case you're not successful, then it can be reimbursed. So I hope that makes sense, but it's just a small point. Should your development project require you to either travel nationally or potentially even internationally?
Thanks, team. I just have one really quick one, and that's for people who haven't applied before and are unsure what's eligible, what's not. I'd also recommend you have a look at funding results on the website, because we have listed the previous recipients, and there is a kind of key sentence in terms of what they received the funding for. So that might help in terms of checking against other organisations who were successful. Yeah, that was just my last little bit. Team, do you think we're all good? Is there
Just
anything
adding
else?
one more thing. Sorry, my friend, just as I've remembered. So one, I've popped the link to the results there in the chat. I couldn't, it's listed there as a question. It's not a question if that's the link. That is the link there. But I was also just going to encourage people to think about, if you've already got work underway that connects to one of these capability areas, you can apply to continue on a different phase, or a phase of that work that you're already undertaking. So for example, we've had past recipients apply to the fund, and with that they've worked on one particular phase of developing capability in a particular space, and then they've come into the next round and look to build on that work and move it forward slightly. So if you already have work underway that perhaps connects to one of those capability areas, then I'd encourage you to also think about, could this fund build on existing work that you're already doing that fits within the eligibility criteria? Because that can also support momentum already in a space, or if there's already a direction that you've set that you want to go in, it can help support that as well. So I just wanted to add that in. It doesn't have to be a brand new project. It can also help with either different phases or existing work that connects to this space. Thank you, Adrian.
I want to add something too now, really, really quick. Just when you're putting your application together, a couple of things to remember. And the best thing is, I need to be taught, we need to be taught, we need to learn, we need to strengthen. And if you work around those, you'll be able to put everything together really easy. There, back to the studio.
Well, I think that's it.
Okay.
Final moment. Let me just have a look at the Q&As. I don't think there's any more Qs for us to A. Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This session was recorded, and so we will endeavour to get it on the CNZ website if you'd like to take another look, or if you want to share with any of your other homahi as well. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend, and I'll pass it over now to my lovely colleague Te Otinga to close us off today.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou, ngā mare kura o CNZ, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, aku kua mahi, ka wahine purotu. Hori no kia koutou, ngā ringa toi, ngā rangatira o ngā rōputanga, o ngā mahi tua, ngā mihi kia koutou, ke ta hara mai, ke ta hakorongo kia māta kōrero. Me inoi tātou. Kia tau te mauri, kia rere te wairua, kia mārama te ngaro, kia tau te rangi māri e, ki runga i a tātou katoa, haumi e, hui e, tāia ki e. Mauri ora.
Mauri ora.
I'm going to end the event now.